The big one. It is Virginia. We're able to project at poll close that Joe Biden will win Virginia. It is why I set you up there, Donna, with that comment, because this is probably the best informed electorate you're going to have, and the electorate that was going to be paying the most attention. Vermont, we are also calling. This is not a surprise. Bernie Sanders, we can call this at poll close too. So it's one state each, but both states aren't equal, Maria Teresa.
Absolutely. And I think I would actually argue, it's something that you were saying, Mark, is that Virginia is the bellwether of the rest of the more moderate wing of the Democratic Party, which is the majority of the Democratic Party. You oftentimes have a conversation of, well, where's California going to go? California is leaps and bounds much more progressive than the rest of the country. So I think that Virginia is going to be that bellwether.
Mm-hmm. Well, guys, I want you to pay attention to a couple things, because I think the most interesting thing in these exit polls we've seen so far is your time of decision, and it tells you how much are voters paying attention to what happened in South Carolina. Well, look at the time of decision in Virginia. Nearly half the electorate made their decision in the last few days, 48%, 52% earlier than that. Just to show you a comparison here so you can see, here's a state that a lot of people expect Bernie Sanders to do well, and that's California. Look at the time of decision here. In the last few days, just 1 in 5 voters. Earlier than that, 80% of voters. So the reason I put that out there tonight is I want people to realize this is telling us an interesting little story. The higher the last few days' decision is, may very well correlate all night long, Donna Edwards, with success for Joe Biden. A lot of people were waiting to see who was coming out of South Carolina.
Well, that's right. And I mean, look at what happened over the last several days. You had the debate in South Carolina, then you had the vote in South Carolina. And Joe Biden, it turns out, is peaking at exactly the moment that he needs to.
Let me put in another thing that also is not a good sign for Bernie Sanders in Virginia. Ideology, the very liberal number here, I think we have it up here. This very liberal number is under 20%, Maria Teresa Kumar. In other states, he's in the very liberal number. If it's in the mid to high 20s, those are states Bernie does better in. This being below 20, it shows you this was an open primary state. Right. A lot of very moderate voters showed up.
Right. And what's curious to see, how many folks voted for Amy Klobuchar in those states? How many folks actually took in the early vote? How many actually took siphoned off for Buttigieg? And you could say that that is the coalition that Biden needs. So the longer that people waited to figure out who was going to drop out, the more likely that it actually goes as if it's going towards Biden.
And Joshua Johnson, I want to break out, we can break out the African-American vote here. Nearly 27% of the electorate in Virginia was African-American. And here you're going to see it was a big win here for Joe Biden. He got 63% of that vote. I want to look at the 18% for Bernie Sanders. It was similar as we saw in South Carolina. He has not expanded his coalition to include African-Americans yet.
He is not yet, no. He did very well with Latino voters, of course, in Nevada. We'll see how that carries over in states like California. Florida, I think, is going to be kind of a mixed bag with Latino voters. But no, that's not a coalition that he's built with. I find Virginia fascinating for a few other reasons, not the least of which is that it's kind of an evolving blue state. You know, it's gone from being purple to
I feel like it changes every year slightly.
Much.
Yeah.
But then this kind of the shade of blue it's going to be, I think, is going to get even bluer. There are other demographic changes happening in Virginia. Virginia has had to deal with some social issues like the Confederate history of Richmond, a transgender member of the state assembly or the state legislature. There's also a new headquarters that Amazon is building in Arlington, and Virginia Tech is building a new campus in Alexandria, so that's going to bring new people into Virginia that may yet make it bluer if they're coming, say, from Seattle or San Francisco or Los Angeles to work in Washington. So I think over time, this blue marker might be a dot in a trend line of Virginia that might get even bluer.
Joshua, let me underscore your point here. You're talking about how it's not, and we showed you it was not a very liberal. Mark Murray, look at the support for Medicare for All in Virginia. It is narrow. 52-46. We have not had an exit or entrance poll yet that hasn't had Medicare for All have a majority support among Democrats. However, Nothing has been this low.
Well, Chuck, one exception in South Carolina was at 49%.
Yes.
So to me, what's really indicative here is that Virginia, the state of Virginia, looks a lot like the South Carolina electorate when it comes to this issue. I'd also note that a lot of Bernie Sanders supporters have actually been looking at the exit polls saying, see, a majority support Medicare for all. That is something they can talk about. However, it's also important to note the wording for this exit poll question. That is, would you be okay with a government plan that replaces your private insurance? It doesn't say anything about eliminating your insurance if you actually like it. So in some ways, it's a very favorable, the wording is very favorable to Medicare for all supporters.
All right, I want everybody to sort of get your pen pads out. This is the time of decision. All right, we've got the breakout now up here of in Virginia. Those in the last few days, how did they break out here? How much did this Biden surge matter? Look at this. 52% of the vote for Biden among the half of the electorate that made their decision in the last few days. As you can see here, remember, we had a poll a week ago that basically had Sanders, Bloomberg, and Biden at 20-20-20 in some form or another. Clearly, the Bloomberg fade in particular has mattered a lot there. But I want people to see those last few days because here, just so you have it, time of decision in Massachusetts. That's very interesting. Look at that split. 46% in the last few days. I'm going to keep going here. Minnesota, time of decision. A majority in the Amy Klobuchar dropping out state in the last few days. Just keep that in mind. And then look at Texas, a huge state where Sanders did a big job on the early vote. Just 23% of the electorate made their decision in the last few days. The point is, as you can see, when that last few days number, the higher it is, likely, the stronger a Biden state it is, the lower it is. There's California, perhaps a better shot for your Bernie Sanders, or the clutter, if you will, in all of this. It's just something, one of the few trend lines that popped in very quickly in this, and looking at all of the exit polls.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here, and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.